web speed optimization. We know that is important from a user standpoint. We know that is also a ranking signal for Google. So today we're going to go through this topic and clarify all the doubts about it with Jamie Indigo. She's a very experienced technical SEO consultant who works at eBay, and we are going to go through the doubts, the top questions, resources, do's and don'ts about web speed or web performance optimization to ensure that your website are as optimized as possible, while also making it a cost-effective task, because we all know that unfortunately we wish to have like ideally optimized websites all the time, but there's only so much that we can do with the resources that we have. So we need to always prioritize. So thank you very much, Jamie, for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. Get to nerd out with all these lovely people.
Yes, it's so cool to have you. To introduce the topic a little bit, let's start by saying that since a few years ago, Google introduced Core Web Vitals as a set of metrics that we should pay attention, that are part of the page experience group of signals. And one of the metrics of Core Web Vitals in particular has to do with loading performance, the measuring loading performance, in particular, largest countable pain, which is pretty much the metric that give us the information how much time does it take for a page to load above the fold, the viewport, and the goal is to ensure that it loads as fast as possible. And Google takes into consideration that if it loads below or under 2.5 seconds, it is considered to be good. If it loads between 2.5 and 4 seconds, it needs improvement. And if it loads above the 4 seconds, is already considered to be bad, right? And unfortunately, when we are auditing our websites, there are many pages, many times that are above this threshold, are considered to be bad from a loading standpoint, and all these many configurations that we go through the PageSpeed Insights tool and many other tools, we will get all of these flags all the time, right? So I want to start with you. If you can please share the steps that you take whenever you're auditing a website. What are the, let's say, elements, configurations, metrics that you actually pay attention to? How do you move forward in a cost-effective way? The fundamental steps, the building blocks.
That is such a great question, because fundamentally, you can have a very big site with lots of pages, and how do you even start on this mission? How do you measure this? How do you get it changed and done? Big steps. First one I want to encourage you is a little piece of advice. There's a million tools out there to tell you a website is broke. Your value prop comes from when I tell you how to fix it. That starts first with listening, because we all want to make good things, but we need to know what good means. In the same way that Core Web Vitals said, we all want to make fast websites. What does fast mean? And they broke it down and defined it. LCP tends to follow a page template. So the first thing I want you to do, and I like to do, is sit down with my customer, my client, and ask them, what pages have the most value? What is, the average value of this type of landing page versus this? You want to find the ones that are going to move the needle. And if we know that the LCP tends to follow a page template, now we've taken our scope from all the things to the page templates we care about. So when we get in there and we start looking at these, let's go ahead and get our baseline metrics. We want to have an idea of how it's currently performing now, because that means we can show when it's better. And humans are wired for this lovely chemical called dopamine. And in our field, it goes up when the graph goes up. So if we can show an increase in conversions, in transactions, in time on page, and number of ads seen, we have a baseline to trigger a very rewarding experience for everybody involved. So my simple trick here is Search Console does so much heavy lifting for you. Go in there, take a look at that dashboard. It's going to give you breakouts for mobile and desktop. It's going to give you clusters. And when it shows you these groupings of pages impacted by, say, poor LCP, it'll give you a primary example and then up to 20 of its friends, including data that's available from Crux. So real user experience data. Everyday humans like you and me who are on our phone and want to stop hovering over the back button, LCP fundamentally matters because it tells me my thumb can stop hovering and I can go ahead and let the page load because it's actually loading. It's a big visual cue. So I find the page types that matter. I've talked to the business. I've created a baseline. My ever so clever trick, Aleida, is it okay if I screen share? I just want to show
Yes, please do.
Easy tools that are free and already available to you. So Crux, oh, you have to enable participation sharing, please.
Make you the, I think that I need to make you the host. Allow me to do that very quickly. I want to mention something. I love that you mentioned segmentation, because indeed, even if the Google Search Console report of COVID Vitals provides you already a segmentations of which are the ones that they consider or they see that are being hurt by certain LCP, for example, poor performance, etc. They are conflated. You will see product pages, category pages, home pages, the About Us pages, or the privacy policy. And of course, the value of all of these different type of pages towards the business and the impact won't be the same. So it's important that we also segment all of these pages. The ones, of course, start with the ones that are poorer, right? And the ones that are poorer, let's take a look at what different types. And at the end of the day, we can segment based on their nature and also if they share the same template or not. All of the product pages will tend to share the same template, all of the categories too, all of the facets too, etc., to facilitate. And because at the end of the day, even if we see that there are millions of product pages that have a bad core web vital, it's true that we don't need to fix one.
It's not a one-by-one basis,
right? That we just need to fix the template of all of them, and it will have all of this big impact too. So that is another criteria that I will suggest to take into account to how many pages that matter are going to be affected, the scope of the work too. I have already given you access.
Perfect. Yeah. And we don't have to go for the poor ones. If there's a low lift to move a bunch of pages from poor to, or from needs improvement to good, and those pages matter to the business, there is nothing wrong with low lift, high impact. All right. There we go. So Chrome User Experience Report corrects data, aka the things actually used as a ranking signal that Google can track, all comes from Chrome. And the great thing about Chrome is Google tends to be this big black box and not tell you, it depends on all of the things. Chrome is open source. Chrome has forums. Chrome is fantastic. And they also build in pieces for considerations like this. So if you go into Chrome DevTools, pop open, set your device type, disable your cache. Well, we can go to Performance Insights right here and run this report. And Chrome, which is the same web rendering service Googlebot uses, and the same one that's tracking corrects data for impacts on rankings and just general can I use thisness, gives me great information. So I'm looking at learningseo.io because why wouldn't I in this moment? If I hover over, it tells me what exactly my node is. My largest contentful paint on this page is text. And that means I know if I make changes that'll impact text, like preloading our fonts, prioritizing that page on the text, our page on the screen. There's a lot of ways that this can be easily lifted. You have more advanced tools like Page Speed Insights, which we all know and love, and I adore it because we get the lab data. So lab means this is a petri dish. We're simulating this. It's not the same as me being lost in Paris and trying to load something very important with no signal. And then PageSpeed, webpagetest.org is fantastic. This is when you want to get really beefy and technical. So if you're working your way into this element, start with the lowest lift, go into Google Search Console, go to your Core Vitals reports, look at those clusters, and just open a couple of them up in your browser, no special tools required, and take a peek, see what's going on there.
I love that the web page test, if you can please go back, they have this section in which they literally recommend you and develop, like pretty much they tell you, okay, these are the opportunities to improve the speed for you to go and experiment with them. And I love the stance of let's start experimented. It's not a black and white type of things, especially if it has a human impact too. I have had a lot of these conversations in the past with a few of my clients that, oh, is the image that is hurting the LCP? Oh, let's just remove the image. But that's the simplistic approach. It will have all the type of consequences from an engagement, conversion, very likely, because the image, especially if it's a meaningful one, has an impact, right? So it's not just about removing, and there are other ways to optimize it, of course. So I love this, the actionability of this, and how they recommend you already steps. So in some cases, they will be doable. In others, they won't, depending on your tech stack, of course. But it is, I would say, meaningful for you to take them into account whenever talking with the development team in charge to execute.
It makes a big difference. Yeah. Having these actual actionable steps and being able to talk to your team and, based on conversations, no, actually, we can't remove these page blocking scripts from the head. Okay, if we can't remove them, how can we reduce the impact to rendering by them? And fundamentally, it doesn't matter. If you're picking a big battle internally for something that may have an impact, but you're not 100% sure, it's okay to pause, make that note, and look at the next opportunity in your list. I do love PageSpeed Insights. I don't know if y'all seen this, but you can actually tick the box right here and isolate specifically the elements that are impacting that metric. Really lovely.
Yes, and I love that, for example, in the percentage of usage of scripts, if you click on the drop down, indeed, it will tell you exactly how much buying that is being used and the actual size of the script. So it's great to have very actionable conversations with the developer saying, okay, this is the specific script. It's not, preload the script or split the scripts differently. No, this is the script that has the bigger size in particular, and you are just using 20% of its code. Can you please split it differently, better, to only load the actual functions that you're using in this particular set of pages? So the more granular and actionable and specific you can be, the easier it will be. Of course, it is always important, let's say, because they are, let's say, the owners, and they know better how the code works.
They always know their site better than you do. 100%. Always bring humility.
100%. So it's always important to bring suggestions, but be as, let's say, specific as possible with the suggestions. So it's very easy for them to come up with alternatives and ways to move forward, right, with solutions.
Absolutely. And because screenshots go a really long way, particularly with key stakeholders who may not understand nuance in detail, you can get really great visualizations of your code coverage in Chrome. So I went to More Tools, Network Conditions, and I ran a quick audit. And now it lets me see each of my scripts and what percentage of them is used. So sometimes just being able to show, and these are broken up really well. Bravo, Aleida. Sometimes you see giant blocks that all have to run together that are all red. And visualizations like that tend to get attention. When you present a report, include links. So if you're taking a screenshot from PageSpeed Insights, link to that report. Link to your webpagetest.org report. Always make sure your data is reproducible and you're transparent about how you acquired that data. If I give a client an audit that has a ton of data, they don't know where it came from, can't reproduce, don't know what tools were used, that's a dead on arrival. So if something is an action immediately upon deliverable, it is not going to get actioned and you're not going to get brought back. You need to read 90 pages.
Facilitate as much as possible, 100%. If you screenshot from which page, how did you get a link to the data source if you can, and like the outcome of it too, or the if it is PageSpeed Insights, you can share directly the test so they can see the actual data that you got. So yes, Jamie,
copy link.
Yes, like that, indeed. from all of what you have mentioned, which is great, by the way, based on your experience, which are usually the areas or configurations of the elements that you find that they tend to have more room for improvement? And I know that this can vary, especially depending on the maturity of the website, the platform that is used. But if you can just choose.
Oh, no, my answer tends to be the same for most of them.
Scripts.
It's right here, right in the head. We tend to treat the head as a junk drawer. And look, we all want new shiny tools. But if a vendor tells you to insert it directly after the opening head tag, you tell them not today. Any script that goes in here and doesn't have this lovely async functionality or defer, it's a little bit like someone comes and knocks at your door. Your neighbor has to come see them, come back to their house, then come inside your house and tell you they're at the door before you can answer it. You are relying on them in a way that I encourage you to have more trust issues over. Scripts get shoved in here, and oftentimes they don't get cleaned out. So when you look in here, are the scripts being used? Who is using these tools? If we have 4 analytics tags firing, should they all be here? It's important to take a look in here. Look at everything you're calling. So if you're calling 97 resources on a page, which honestly isn't that much anymore, are all 97 being used? Because the most optimized resource is the one that you don't call. If you don't need it, it doesn't come along. If no one's using it, bye-bye. My second thing that I love to, I will die on this hill. This is my WordPress. It is a web page, not a hostage now. You do not need 27 fonts on a single page. It does not serve anyone. It's actually pretty cumbersome for the page to render. So, minimal, sleek, elegant, have a vision board. Make it work, designers.
Also, from a design perspective, I don't know if having more than a couple of them actually makes a lot of sense visually, right? Like not necessarily appealing to be changing every other paragraph, the font. So it doesn't make sense to load them all necessarily, 100%.
Or sometimes the whole family gets called. So instead of the ones that are actually used, which are very small and sprightly, we call a whole family of them. And while font files themselves are dainty little things, a swarm of them becomes a much different beast.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So you know what? Realistically, it's funny because I think that we overthink a lot of this configurations, and there's always this stance about, can you give me proof that this will improve our rankings or our conversions at the very least, right? Like if you are the SEO, like it's not necessarily your focus. There is a conversion rate optimization person, very likely if it is a bigger company. But at the end of the day, we want to bring traffic that converts.
I found another hill.
For thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I have another hill I will die on here.
Tell
so
me.
When you optimize for Core Vitals, don't measure it by SEO rankings, because the changes you make actually impact every user, every device, every channel, every medium. All of them get the boon of this. And if we try and measure it in rankings, we are guesstimating a Rube Goldfarb long pipeline of 200 factors. When instead, if we look very directly at how's our time on page, how's our bounce rate, how's our conversions, because humans fundamentally like fast pages. We have very short attention spans. If someone comes to your site and they're waiting for it to load and they get an Instagram notification, they're not coming back to you. It's just how we work.
That we will end up improving or changing with the aim that it loads faster and give a better user experience, end up also positively impacting other things like the crawlability of the pages, especially if it is relying or you are over relying on client-side rendering, JavaScript, and Google will have a threshold, let's say, up to a point. How much should I wait for it? If a user doesn't wait, like the Google bot won't be waiting for much longer either, right? So it is something that is also important to take into account, that I 100% agree, Jamie, that is not just one factor or another, or it can be measured in a in a single way. In fact, I think that it has to do a lot with the next question, the next topic, that is about the mistakes that you see people doing when optimizing core vital, speed, page performance in general. You mentioned just one, right? Like focusing on a single metric that is ranking related, and that's it. It has many implications and should look, and you should be able to measure the impact in so many different ways. User experience related, conversion related, engagement related, etc., etc. Which are the other mistakes that you see people doing again and again when tackling this task? I will say that one that takes my attention, that even despite a lot of despite a lot of the clarifications that Google have done in the past, a lot of people still conflate and mix lab data with Crux data, and still they don't understand the difference. And they mention, oh, I see all my metrics in green here in my own test that I am running myself and through this tool, but
it works on my machine.
So I don't see what the core vitals are seeing and what you are getting through the Google Search Console, and it doesn't matter because what I'm seeing here is all good, right? So understanding what is the difference between core vital information that is the one that Google actually uses, that is shown through, or at least like as much as possible that they gather through the Google Search Console, that is real user metrics of your actual visitors, right? And many times, because you have a great speed and connection, you don't see and you cannot replicate and the challenges and the issues.
You're 40 feet from the server. You can't really be surprised if it loads fast.
100%. What other, let's say, mistakes or issues do you see that are misunderstandings that should be clarified?
We're going to, I feel the one that I see the most is actually strategic. So when you come in and you're ready to go ahead and take on this challenge, you're going to encounter many well-intentioned challenges on the way. So first, you brought up a gray one. Someone's going to never really tell you, but they're all green for me. Start with, thank you so much for looking and checking. I love that you are curious and passionate about this. I have a very cool data source. Can I show it to you? Always bring that. Thank you for being interested. Can we compare what we have? How does this tie with this? What do you think about this? Next, the lion's share, the Godzilla of the problem is too wide of an initiative. We all want to make good things. We all start with where we are. We all work with what we have. If you're given very small resources for your first pancake, and you very well might be, first pancake being first try this, focus it on somewhere that you can measure. We don't do this change across 14 page types. If you get one epic, so if you get one developer ticket with subtasks in it, you're going to focus them all on one collective effort to boost one page type, one specific facet, because you want to be able to show very clearly this worked. If we try and do it across too many page types, we try and attack too many elements, too many variables at once, it makes it harder to show the impact. So being very limited scope, know your scope and know when to say, that's out of scope. When someone brings it up, oh, hey, this is on that page too. You know what, that's out of scope, but I think it's a great next initiative. So focusing it in and following up. So folks need to create your baseline, your launch, and then follow up. And you want to be able to show the change. Once you can show the technical change, because that's our key indicator. You can't go ahead and say, look, conversion went up, and then check your data for the metric and see it's actually flat. Always confirm, always be transparent. If you encourage your teammates, especially those who've been working on it or invested in it, that how to see the data for themselves, how to follow along, you're building allies. More than just a good page experience. And the more allies you have, the more trust they have in you to say, no, they do things to get things done, the further you're going to go. So my biggest red flag issue that I see in there is people being willing to pick a fight Don't pick a fight yet. Listen to them out. The number of times I have seen the dumbest thing possible in a piece of code and then found out that's actually holding everything together. Dumb things are there for a reason. Your team knows things are broken. That team that's hired you to consult is well aware that, yeah, we don't have H2s in these page types, but we can't do that until we get this thing in, and it's not going to happen until Q3 next year. So humility, ask questions, get information from multiple sources, keep your type scope. We're going to work on template A for product listing pages. We are going to focus on the LCP and the CLS. Specific scope, specific home. Follow up, be transparent with your data. No one's going to feel like they got bamboozled when they're able to go see the source of it, able to replicate it. Make some friends on the way. Also, cake is always a good bribery. At the end of the epic, just put acceptance criteria. Task 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are done, and everyone gets cake.
Amazing, amazing. I love how you are so actionable and specific, going through all of the different steps and areas.
Oh, be specific on what you want done. That's actually, sorry, I should have mentioned that. I think it was in my head and I just got too excited. So when you say fix the CLS, no, that doesn't work. Give them specific tickets. I want you to give your developers something that they can understand without ever having talked to you. Usually that is a user story. So as blank, as my role, I want to do this action to achieve this outcome. And then your acceptance criteria is, this is what good means. This is what done means. And when you break it down to, hey, I would like you to add this tag on this font file, on this page type, suddenly that goes from the backlog blob of SEO tasks to, oh yeah, we can fit that in the sprint. Yeah, it's like a 2-point, let's do this. And you'd be surprised how quickly they get done.
Amazing.
Be specific.
100%. It's about making it easy to go through, actionable, and also balancing out and understanding the overall team standpoint too. At the end of the day, we all have the same goal, or we should all have the same goals, right? Like if there are different stances, it's about finding a balance between them. I know that, again, this is one of those questions that will have that it depends type of answer, but what is the platform? What tends to be the platforms that you see that tend to have more challenges in terms of speed, right? Funnily enough, this is the thing. I believe that in many of these cases, it's not because of a fault of the platform itself, but it's actually how it has been configured, many times because of the lack of sometimes web development capacity. In other cases, it's because of the lack of let's say, awareness of the importance of speed optimization to WordPress, for example. Even if it, like many templates are among those that are super light, super fast to load, because we tend to overuse plugins many times over
many plugins.
Holidays.
So please stop with the plugins.
Yeah. So yes. So I don't know if you have found the same or any other platforms that you want to raise, and also also like solutions, plugins. So for example, for every WordPress website that I have, as much as possible, I try to use the minimum plugins, and then I use Cloudflare also connection.
Yes.
That is super cheap to try to also like minimize. And
it's PHP. Let's give cache versions. Yeah, absolutely.
So yes.
I have not found a single platform that in and of itself is inherently good or bad. What I have found is people trying to make good things and having blind spots or having biases. Great example, company that rented homes out had very slow pages for the cities where they listed the homes they rent out. And this is because they had this slider that was loading, the 100 homes, and they were all off screen. But it was very heavy and clunky. And the team decided, oh, we can go ahead and fix this. And how they did it just basically made all of that content uncrawlable to Google. So technically, they did a great job at removing this very heavy blocking piece at great expense, because the reason that the page existed didn't exist to Googlebot anymore. So every single team has really tried to make good choices, but they've done it with the knowledge they have. I will throw one under the bus. Client-side rendering. If the page is rendering all in your browser, not only is it probably really clunky, and it doesn't have to be, but it takes a lot more intentional curation of what loads when that most people don't have the bandwidth to go ahead and execute. But when you have it, 100%. Especially when you're shipping unneeded stuff, all bets are off. Good luck. Good luck with rendering, crawlability, completeness, core web vitals. Yeah.
The crazy thing is that many times this is a decision that is made on purpose, and they will have pretty much gone with server-side rendering very easily, right? If it had been decided at that time. That is why it's very, very important to have involvement, let's say, as much as possible, if doable, from the beginning for this decision making. To start wrapping up, I wanted to ask you, and you already were kind enough to go through different tools that I also love. I have a couple of ones that I have been using. I have found to be also very, let's say, easy to use, impactful also in the way how they display the metrics and the recommendations. One of them is WattSpeed, that is from the same developers of Advanced Web Ranking, Philip Petrescu. So go and take a look at it. Then the other one is PTools, that is from
oh, that one's great. Yes, sorry, I should have mentioned that one.
Yes,
phenomenal tool.
Sultan Ayman Lukhil too. Any other tools, any other resources that you would like to refer, that you have found particularly useful, especially if it is freemium too, so anybody can start playing around easily?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know Dave Smart, right? Yes. Absolutely. Yes. Wonderful and brilliant human. The number of times I've just picked up a casual conversation with him and lamented how I wish something could do X, Y, or Z. And then the next day he's like, I'm in a beta. Do you want to try this out? We've gone ahead and played with it and just had a really great time. We've built a couple of tools now. They're all hosted on tamethebots.com. There is fantastic visualizing of core vital history, looking at JSS and CSS coverage, great performance tool. I love them mostly because they were built to facilitate my whining. They might benefit you and they're free.
That is amazing. Well, the best tools are the ones that are developed to tackle real problems right away, because these are the ones that very likely many others who are doing what you do will tend to find also very useful too. So thank you very much, Jamie. And as a last thing, any last tip that you would like to finish today's conversation with, something that you haven't mentioned that you think could be valuable, useful to take into account when optimizing for speed?
Absolutely. I'm going to give you all 2 amazing buffs that are going to get you so far, not just in page speed, but as you communicate with clients. The first one is like a +4 buff, okay? Let me repeat that back to you. Incredibly powerful, especially when you're talking to a stakeholder, trying to find out what's important, you're trying to figure out what involves when, where. Just repeat it back. You'd be surprised the number of times that we use the same words to mean different things. And this helps just cut away a layer of possible confusion that can build up and lead to earth-shattering kabooms. The second one is my favorite, and it's, I don't know, but I'll find out and get back to you. You will inevitably feel pressure from someone who is very important, has a very big title, a very big role in this project, who wants you to give an answer now. It is better for you to simply go, I don't know, but I'll find out and get back to you, and share that follow-up, than it is to try and answer, possibly fumble, possibly speak incorrectly on the fly. It shows that you have a temperance and understanding, a willingness to follow through, to communicate, and to provide the best information for everyone, a step aside of your ego. It'll go so far. So I know those aren't super specific, but I promise they'll go a lot farther.
That's what clients, what your superiors, the companies, etc. That is how trust is set, 100%. Ensuring that the answer that you're providing is correct, and showing that you care about it, that you don't say whatever just to be able to to answer right away, 100%. I will say that also something that is aligned to what you mentioned is that whenever we're talking with decision makers is to make it easier for them. Many times used to also, let's say, show that we know our stuff, we go very technical. If we want to make a point with decision makers, we're not talking with developers or with other SEOs, it doesn't make sense. Let's talk their language in a way that they understand, explain things visually many times so they see it. Many times also is very useful to do benchmarks and comparisons versus your competitors. There is nothing as showing to your boss
that will get their attention without fail.
How your top one competitor outranking you for everything and making more than you, and it's something known, right? That they are the leaders and not you, are loading faster than you and give it a better experience than you, right? So is a gap and something that is dragging you down, right? Dragging you back in everything, not only in rankings, but in search experience and user experience, right? There's nothing like that. I will highly recommend you to think in that way in order to
it's an inverse graph. Yeah. The higher up in the company, the fewer words you are going to use.
Yeah, 100%.
C-level is probably giving 3 seconds per email. A great screenshot of a graph will go a lot farther than a large email that will not be read.
Yeah, especially if you're comparing it against like your competitor or the market share or many other players that are doing better than you, 100%. Thank you very much, Jamie.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Very actionable, very insightful. Hopefully, all the participants today and people watching, SEOs watching today's videos will get tons of ideas and inspiration and resources to go and start making their page performance,
go run amok,
audits, analysis, recommendations much more actionable and specific and meaningful. I really appreciate it. And until the next edition of the LearningSEO.io Q&A accelerators, remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't, to avoid
keep curious, keep learning.
Thank you. Bye-bye.